What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'll talk about what Jerome Powell said that caused the market to pump, what you should be watching for as time goes on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just about a couple of weeks from now. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So right now, SPY is on a very, very strong uptrend. So are Tesla, the QQQ, and other tickers. And the market's holding up very, very nicely. The reason for this is because we got another good catalyst. We saw Jerome Powell continue to pump things, and the data that came out was more decent. Most things were very close to expectations when it comes to the ISM services data. So now with Jerome Powell's speech, what essentially happened? The answer is the guy came out and he continued to help the markets push by maintaining a very, very optimistic view about the economy. He continued to mention the fact that inflation has dipped like a rock, once again continuing to fall, and the Fed has done a very, very good job at getting things together. He mentioned that the unemployment numbers are not too bad and that the economy remains in a very, very good place. He did mention the fact that the Fed has to be a little bit more cautious, of course, when it comes to what they do with future monetary policy. But it's not because the economy is weak or anything like that. It's because the economy is already very strong. So they don't want to overdo it. They don't want to be cutting too fast. They don't want to be, doing the opposite. They don't want to be cutting too slow either. So they want to be very, very balanced. And that's what he's talking about when it comes to being more cautious. So it's more optimistic, if anything, and him continuing to push the narrative that the economy is doing very well. And that's what the stock market liked. That's why the stock market continued to push the way it did. Jerome Powell was very, very optimistic about how things are looking. And he believes that, once again, the downside risks are less in the labor market and the growth is stronger than what they were expecting. Now, in the past, he did mention that he was more a little bit less certain about this because of what they were expecting. The expectations for how well the economy would be doing were a little bit weaker back in September. And what happened was the unemployment numbers were better than expected. So that's why Jerome Powell is saying that the economy is doing very well. That's the reason why the Fed is going to be a little bit more careful despite that, because once again, they don't want to cut too fast or too slow because of the fact that the economy is showing strength. And he maintained a very, very bullish stance. So that's why the market saw a nice push. I also want to add on to the fact that there's now a 78.1% chance that we get a 25 basis point cut. So this went up by about 7%. That's part of why the market pushed for the next FOMC meeting. So the market now expects a cut of 25 basis points in the next FOMC meeting. There will be more data coming out that could affect whether or not this changes. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday, December 5th, 2024. I just want to mention that at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have initial jobless claims coming out, not to mention, whoopsies, I think I clicked something by mistake. Sorry about that. We have initial jobless claims, then we also happen to have continuing jobless claims and other pieces of data. So we'll see what that leads to, so just keep that in mind. Besides that, we had some earnings that came out. We had Chewy, Dollar Tree, and a few other retail. For tomorrow, we have Dollar General, TD Bank, and a few more. As far as Dollar Tree goes, they did really, really well with earnings. They saw some nice growth overall. They saw their EPS basically in the third quarter for adjusted earnings to come out at about $1.12 a share, not to mention revenue at $7.56 billion. Both were above expectations, so good job by Dollar Tree. The overall guidance was quite decent. They're expecting the range to essentially be the same as before. We're looking for a range in revenue of between $30.7 to $30.9 billion with adjusted EPS between 5.31 and 5.51. This is a slight increase overall in terms of revenue, but earnings or EPS are about the same, within the same range. Now, they also have to be replacing their CFO and maybe their CEO after potential health concerns and family matters. So that's something that's worth mentioning. We also had Chewy stock announce earnings. Just to be very blunt, the share price came down because of the fact that they missed on estimates. They did once again see a beat in revenue, but their earnings were not as strong. That's why the share price went down. For the overall market right now, greed is making up the majority of sentiment. Momentum indicators remain very, very greedy, so just keep that in mind. And then the put and call option ratio is currently at extreme greed. That is making up the majority of sentiment. The reason why that's important is because greed is just very, very present right now, and the market continues to push. And we also saw a lot of puts being closed again. The VIX remains down. We'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. So far, the market's very, very resilient. It's continuing to pump. But I do want to give you guys a warning. We've been pumping so hard with no sort of pullback. So I do want to warn you to be more cautious at these levels. However, always remember the market remains bullish until we officially get a break, and there's no sign of a break yet, so the chart still favors more upside. I believe tomorrow SPY will attempt to test the all-time highs, and if we break that, we're looking for essentially just under 609 as our target. We'll have to see if we could break past 609 to push higher. Otherwise, we could test around that area to go a little bit higher. But then if we turn, make sure you watch the key support on SPY around that 606 area. If we lose that, I'm going to be looking for 604, so very close to the 604 range. If that fails, we go to 602.5, then 600 is our potential targets, especially as there's that gap to fill all the way down here. So I think what's going to happen is there is a risk of the market turning, but there's no sign of it yet. So the market might push a little bit more. Might be another attempt to push to grab liquidity up here. We might attempt to get back up to 609 or above. And if we continue to do that, yes, we remain bullish. The charts are bullish for now. I will turn bearish if we reject off 609 and start dipping. We end up losing like 605. So yes, I could change my view. And I think that there is a risk of that happening, but there's no sign of it yet. So just know that for now, we're just going to focus on the upside, the fact that we're making higher highs and higher lows. There's a very, very good chance that we continue this push. So I think that tomorrow morning, look for a push to retest all-time highs. We could push even higher. We could pivot later on, but there's no sign of that yet. So we'll see if that happens. But for now, just know there is a risk the higher we go, and the market remains bullish. ES also remains bullish. We could be looking for 6,100 as our potential targets. If we end up losing support around 60,800, we're looking for a dip all the way back down towards these lower levels, such as 6,066. I think that ES is very strong, very resilient thus far. There's a good chance it continues this pump. So watch to see if that ends up being the case for us. I think we're doing a good job so far. So look for an attempt to retest 6,100. We'll see if we could break that or not. If we break it, we're going even higher to 6,120. If we reject, we come back down. I think we push for 6,100. We might consolidate a bit here, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not if the market's about to turn. But for now, we remain bullish, so I do favor a retest of 6,100 and a little bit more upside from here. We're not really ready for that rejection yet, so we'll see if that ends up coming. For other stocks such as Nvidia, the chart remains bullish. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure. We're pushing up very nicely, and we could attempt to get back up to about 147.5. Could be a dip and then a push for 147.5. We'll see if we get a rejection off that. But overall, the chart remains more bullish. Bitcoin looks more bullish. We're looking for a test of 99,000. If that breaks 100,000, it's going to be our next target. If we reject off 99,000, look at the main support at 98,250. If that fails us, we have this imbalance to fill at 97,500. So I'm favoring that this is going to try to break this resistance at 99,000 to start pushing even higher. With inverse head and shoulders that's slanted, we could be pushing for those higher levels. So I do favor upside a bit more. For Tesla, we look more bullish as we have a cup and handle like structure, and we're holding our key supports very, very well. So I could be looking for an attempt to get back up for the 360 area, and I favor upside as a stronger possibility. So please keep that in mind, guys. Right now, there is upside potential, and we could be looking for essentially 360 as our target. I think Tesla has the potential to push even higher from here. So overall, look and see if we end up getting that break. But for now, I think that Tesla pushes for 360. We'll see if we break through that or not, but the chart remains more bullish. There is still that cup and handle like structure that is developing, and it gives Tesla a lot more upside to break out. So watch that very, very closely. I'm going to talk about Apple, then I'll talk about the QQQ after that. Apple is looking bullish right now. It's making higher highs and higher lows. There is a tough resistance, however, at this 244 area. We weren't able to really hold above that today. So I think we might attempt to retest 244. If we get a rejection, this could be forming a double top, and Apple could turn back down towards 240. If we manage to break past 244, we remain more bullish. So for tomorrow, I anticipate the most likely possibility is we retest 244. If that rejects, we come back down to about 242. If we break 244, we remain more bullish, but look for a push in the morning to retest that resistance, and then we'll see how it goes from there. With that being said, for the QQQ and NQ, because Nvidia and the others do look bullish, this could go a little bit higher and get closer to about 524 to 525. It might go a little bit higher, but then be careful once we hit that resistance. We'll see if we get some kind of rejection or not, because it is going to be a little bit tough. And then you also have to consider we have a gap down here, and we've been pumping with no rejections so far whatsoever. So I think we could go a little bit higher to just under that range or very close to it, 524 to 525. And then we'll see if we get a rejection and we make a move back down to fill that gap. Just know for the time being, we favor upside. If we lose 520 on the QQQ, I'm going to be looking for an attempt to get back down to about 516. But just know I'm favoring a push higher, a little bit more upside, and then we will see if we get a rejection or not at those higher levels. There is a risk of it, looking at the fact that the market's been pumping with no rejection. So I think we go a little bit higher, but then watch that resistance. The closer we get to 525, the tougher it's going to be, and we'll see if we get some kind of rejection from there. For the rest of the tickers out there, I just want to say that Netflix has done a great job at pumping. There's a slight bearish divergence here. It might dip a bit to retest the breakout area back down towards 906 to 908. And we'll see if we get a bounce off that. The trend is more bullish as we're making higher highs and higher lows, but there might be a small dip coming for 906 to 908. And we'll see if we get a bounce from there. If we bounce off that range, we could continue to rebound and start pushing right back up to higher levels, such as 915 plus. And if we lose that, we could be dipping back down for about 900. So look for a dip for 908 to 906, and we'll see if we bounce or not. So give that some time. MicroStrategy, excuse me, guys. We're doing a good job at holding up so far. We could be going for that 420 target so long as we don't lose 400 to dip down to 389. I'm favoring 420 as our next upside potential move. I think we're looking quite bullish, at least thus far. For Celsius, we look a little bit more bullish as we're trying to uptrend right here. I think we're doing a good job so far. We could be dipping a little bit more back down towards that 28.5 area, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. But overall, we're doing a good job. We're trying to hold these supports, forming a double bottom. We might be dipping for 28.5 to 28.79 before we try to bounce. But overall, I think that we're doing a good job. Look for that test right now around that 28.79 to 28.59 area, and we'll see if we get a bounce. That will push us back up for that 30 plus zone. Overall, we're doing a very, very good job. So far, Celsius has more potential. For Supermicro, we're making higher highs and higher lows right over here as we continue this uptrend. I think that it's looking quite strong right here. As long as we don't lose 38.64, this is favoring upside. I think that with this bounce that's come, it's going to attempt to fill this imbalance, taking us back up to about the 44 area for tomorrow. So I see some upside potential in this chart. For Palantir, we look more bullish as we're making higher highs and higher lows, and we could be on our way back up for that 72 area. I think there's good potential in this to push higher, so watch for that, and we could be on our way back up there. As long as we don't lose 68.13, I'm favoring upside a little bit more, so just please keep that in mind. For others out there, we have Rivian, which is just range bound. It's just trading sideways between 11.65 and 12.5. So look for a dip here and a bounce back up to about that 12 area. I just see a lot of sideways price action here, but it is holding its 20 EMA. So there's a chance it dips and bounces for the 12s. That's the most likely case in my opinion. SoFi had a double top leg structure forming at a high here, came down at a lower high. So look for a dip for 15.96 and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. It has some potential, but just know that this could develop into a head and shoulders that could lead to some downside. So if we end up losing 15.5, we could be turning back down to about 15.28. So watch and see if we get a turn from here. I'm going to be very patient with this. Look for a test of 15.96 tomorrow. We need to bounce off this. If not, the head and shoulders could pan out. So keep that in mind. The IWM Russell 2000 is not looking that strong. We tried to break out. We're in the range between 240 and 242. If we don't hold above 240, we're going back down to 238. It looks a little bit weaker, so this might start sinking a bit, so please be very mindful of that. I also want to mention to everyone, we have AMD. AMD is on a very, very nice uptrend. This is attempting to rebound with a nice double bottom. As long as you don't lose 140 and 141.17, we could attempt to get back up to about 147. So watch and see 145 and 147 as our targets. We could be pushing a little bit higher. For ARM could be retesting about 139.9 before it tries to bounce. Might be a small dip right over here, but then we'll see what kind of reaction we get. So give this some more time to develop. We'll be watching this very, very soon. So look for that dip for 139.9 before it tries to rebound, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For Coinbase, we look more bullish. We are trying to push higher. If we end up losing the support over here around this 327 area, we're looking for a dip back down for essentially 316. And this looks more bullish to me. I think we could be approaching 340 if we hold above 330. So it looks bullish as we're breaking this structure here. We could be on our way closer to 340 before we see some kind of pivot. But overall, it's looking quite nice. Now, Amazon hit 220 as predicted. Now it's in this range. We have a range between 216 and 220. We're going to likely just be stuck like that. So we could be dipping back down a little bit here. It's about that 216 to 217.5 area before it tries to bounce again. But just know that we hit some tough resistance. So I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon slows down just a bit. Then we'll see if we get a bounce near 216. If it does get that bounce, it will remain bullish. But just keep that in mind. It's going to likely consolidate in that range. For Meta, it's range bound right here. It went up to about this 618 area, and we have support at 608. I think this might attempt to push for 618. We'll see if we break past this or not. There's a range forming here, but look for a little bit more upside, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For Microsoft, we look more bullish. This is making higher highs and higher lows. As long as we don't end up losing the support at 435, this is favoring upside to get closer to 440. I think there's a good chance we try to get back up there. So watch to see if we get up to 440, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For Google's on a very, very nice uptrend so far. This could attempt to try to push up for this next area. So we could be looking for essentially 175. If we break past 176, we look for 178. If we end up losing and rejecting off 176, we're looking for 174 as support. I think the chart's favoring upside for 178 if we break resistance. So look at this resistance right here at 176. We'll have to see if we break it or not. What I think is we might dip first about 175, and we'll see if we get a bounce to push higher if that's going to be the move. But just be careful at this resistance. The upside is still prevalent. For GameStop, we look more bearish. We could be dipping back down to about 26.2. AMC could be on its way back down to about 4.5. TJT looks decent. We hit this resistance at 36. I do think it might dip to the breakout area around 34.4 before it tries to break out higher, so give that some time to develop. The VIX could be trying to bounce here, but there's no confirmation of it breaking its EMAs. It needs to get back above 13.74. If it breaks through that, this could start to push for 14.68. That could be a sign the market's going to top soon. So my view of the market is the market could go a little bit higher, but just be careful as we hit those highs. The 10-year treasury yield's on a bit of a downtrend. We'll have to see what happens. It is dipping to fill this gap potentially because of what Jerome Powell has said. And the dollar remains very, very stuck. It has a double top leg structure. Just keep in mind the VIX, the dollar, and the 10-year are not affecting the market as much as they used to. So we're not as concerned about those. My view of the market is quite simple nonetheless. I think that there is upside potential for the market. We could be pushing higher a little bit more because the trend remains bullish, but we could see a pivot soon. So be very careful at these levels because the market's pumped so much without any sort of pullback. Okay, so I am still bullish. I think the market could go a little bit higher, but just be careful at these levels, and we'll be watching resistance just to see what kind of reaction we get. Until I see you guys again, I thank you all so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow before market open for another update. Until then, please have an absolutely fantastic day, night, or evening, wherever you guys are around the world. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and peace out.